welcome to the favourite football podcast. I'm James Killick, and with me today is James Brett.
Hello, hello, hello.
And Benjamin Howard.
Hello, sexy people.
How are you both doing?
Good, thank you. This is actually my first time on your extra time, so I'm happy to say you are bursting my cherry.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, don't get too comfortable, mate.
That's not the first time I've said that to Killick either, so...
Yeah, we can edit that out, right? So in today's podcast, we're going to obviously talk about all the Champions League action that we've had this week. And in the second half of the podcast, we're going to talk about the tragic death of Maradona and, of course, the tier system and how that will affect certain clubs in the Premier League. So let's kick off then, guys, straight into the Champions League. Let's start with Group A here. So Bayern Munich, 4 points already through. What do we think about the rest of the group?
So Bayern Munich is pretty much a done deal. We all knew that was going to happen. 4 games, 4 wins, 11 goal difference, wherever it is. So, yeah, they're set, dead set. But it's the Atletico Madrid situation, to be honest. That's caught our attention, hasn't it?
I thought Bayern Munich were quite lucky last night because Salzburg actually played quite well if you watched the game. They were very unlucky to not come away with a point at least.
Yeah, but they've only got 1 point in total, so they're relevant.
Well, yeah.
I mean, we expected Bayern Munich to go through, didn't we? I guess the surprise in this group is Atletico Madrid, isn't it? Because obviously 4 games, 5 points, and actually any of the bottom 3 can still go through in this group with a couple of games remaining.
Yeah, was it a 1-1 draw yesterday against Lokomotiv? Was that the score in that game?
It was 0-0.
0-0, yeah, I knew it was a draw, that's the one.
Even more boring.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. But, Atletico, they're sort of pedigree, they're having this competition. They should be doing better than this, really, shouldn't they?
Well, it's their European form, which is obviously the worst out of the two, because they're doing quite well in their Liga. They've got 2 games in hand over Sociedad, and they're 3 points from the top of the league, and then you see their European form, and it's a bit like, meh.
Yeah, obviously I do expect them to sort of end up being that second team, but I suppose it's still a bit of a worry for them that they're, most of these teams would rather they get through as quickly as possible at this stage, and then they don't have to worry about the last 2 games, obviously, like they've got to worry about now. They can sort of field their second string players and all the rest of it. So for me, yeah, this is not an ideal situation for Atletico Madrid to be in, but I do sort of see them coming up trumps in the end.
Which team have they played twice? Have they played Salzburg twice? I'm just trying to work out.
Yes, they have, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, maybe obviously playing Bayern Munich might not have their strongest team out. That could be a factor, possibly. Could be an advantage, couldn't it?
True.
Now that obviously Bayern Munich are already free. Yeah, but as we say, Bayern Munich are obviously absolute juggernaut in this competition, aren't they? Yeah, strange one, that group. You would expect Atletico to be challenging a little bit more, but it's what it is, isn't it? All right, then, should we move on to Group B?
Indeed.
I mean, this one is weird. I don't think we would have expected this, would we? So, Gladbach topping the group, but only with 8 points after 4 games. We've got Real Madrid, 7 points, obviously 1 less. Shakhtar on 4, and Inter Milan, 4 games and 2 points. Oh, that's a shock, isn't it, Inter Milan? I think in that, I mean, Gladbach obviously being at the top's a shock, but, Inter Milan, 4 games and 2 points.
Up the Gladbach.
They've been amazing, haven't they? Like, their goal difference is 10 as well. Like, was it yesterday they won 4-0? They obviously done Real Madrid a couple of games ago.
The goal difference is 10 because they beat Shakhtar Donetsk 6-0 in their first game against them, and then 4-0 in their second game. That's why the goal difference is 10.
But even so, they've had some really good results in there. I really did sort of see them either coming bottom or third at the maximum, really. But the fact that they're like top, Real Madrid are second, and Inter Milan, I think that's the real shock. Only 2 points from all those games so far. Considering these guys were Europa League finalists last season, what is going on there?
I don't know, because they've been in an okay form, domestically. Obviously, Lukaku's obviously been in absolutely incredible form. It's a weird one, but as I say, I mean, we've got 2 more games to go. They're on 2 points. I mean, they can catch up. They can even still come second. I mean, technically, if they absolutely blast with the goals, I mean, they could actually still come first. But it's a strange one, isn't it? It's I don't know what to say about it, really. 'Cause you feel they should be doing better, especially when they've got Shakhtar above them. I mean, that's concerning, isn't it?
Well, Shakhtar was one of the teams last year in the Europa League that got to semis as well, wasn't it?
Mm. Yeah, they got spanked by Inter Milan in the semis.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. So you sort of look at it like that, and you sort of like, it kind of looks like they're going backwards in a way, but I don't know. It's a strange one. I keep thinking, I don't know who's actually going to go through. Like, will, Borussia Mönchengladbach actually... Well, that was a mouthful, wasn't it? Will they actually manage to maintain that place at the top, or will Shakhtar, or I don't think it's possible for Inter Milan now, is it? Surely.
Well, based on their form, you would suggest they are going to go through Mönchengladbach. They beat Shakhtar twice and drew against Madrid and Inter. So all they need is a draw and they're through, if you think of it, against Inter Milan.
That's true. And I suppose with Inter Milan's form at the moment, especially in the Champions League, that kind of seems like a foregone conclusion, surely. So
if Madrid beats Donetsk and Mönchengladbach draw, then Madrid and Mönchengladbach are through, and bye-bye Conte.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, do you reckon that's going to hinder his job security a little bit? I'm not too sure how they're doing in Serie A at the moment.
Well, he wasn't happy anyway towards the end of last year, was he, at Inter Milan?
He's never happy.
That's true.
He's never happy, is he? Ever. Even when he wins a title with Chelsea, he's not particularly happy. But I guess if they don't even get third in the group, then yeah, you would have to start asking questions, wouldn't you? But I guess their main priority really is maybe trying to take on that Serie A, isn't it? And you've got Juventus not doing as well as they've done. I mean, they're hardly off the pace by that much, and I guess that's kind of their focus. But so for that reason, I think they would stick with Conte. But it would be a disappointment for the club because they've invested quite a lot of money, haven't they, over the last couple of years? I mean, and you look at someone like Eriksen, for example, can't even get a game for them at the moment.
Well, he's been linked elsewhere now, hasn't he? I've seen his name being thrown about everywhere, even down to Arsenal. I keep seeing that come up. I was like, imagine that.
I'll take it.
Really, ex-Spurs?
Yeah, he'll do. He's still relatively young, isn't he, Eriksen? I always think he's a bit older, but I heard his age yesterday. I mean, shame I can't remember it as I'm hosting a podcast, but
I was going to say, what is his age? I don't know.
Not old. Officially is his age.
He's 29. That's old.
He's 28.
Oh, there you go. He's 28
years old, so he's got a couple of years in him, isn't he?
Thank you, producer James.
Yeah, thanks very much. You literally just held that in my face. So. Secrets of the pod. Okay then, guys, let's move on to the next group then, shall we? Brett, you'll be happy to see that Manchester City have secured qualification, won all 4 games. How do you feel about that?
I feel like it's Groundhog Day, really. Every year they get the best group and the best outcome, and they've had it this year. Played 4, won 4. Foregone conclusion. I think Porto have pretty much done it as well, haven't they? Second.
Yeah, pretty much.
Olympiacos on 3 points, so it's very unlikely they're going to pull something out their arse. So that's it. That group's already done. City and Porto are through.
And Marseille are really terrible because they set a new record last night with Champions League defeats, 13 in a row.
Oh, that's...
And they're the only team to not score in the Champions League as well this season as well. So how the mighty have fallen.
What a great European campaign they've had then, yeah? Who's the manager? Is it Villas-Boas?
Yeah, Villas-Boas, the guy who said retire the number 10 everywhere in the world.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that later, I suppose, but let's put it this way, he needs to retire himself, so...
Strange old manager, isn't he? Because he started so young. He's still such a young guy, isn't he? I think the first club he managed, actually, he was like 20 years old, and it was, I think it was an international job. It was obviously a smaller nation. I'm not sure exactly who it was, but it's not going too well there, is it? 4 games, no points. But Porto, obviously we had Hugo on. You can go back and actually listen to our episode we did with Hugo, one of our guests, Porto fan. He was talking about their league and stuff, but they're doing well. 4 games and 9 points, so doing really well.
He'll be very happy with that, actually. I remember that episode like you're speaking about, he was sort of saying they really need to push on with the young players they've got. And it does seem like they're doing it, because I think, Marseille and Olympiacos, they've both got a lot of pedigree in this competition, so... it's not to be sniffed at that they've got second at the moment, so well done to them.
Yeah.
Up the Porto.
Up the Porto.
We'll get Hugo back on for sure to give us a little catch up. Okay, let's go then to Group D, shall we? With Liverpool topping the table at the moment with 9 points, closely followed by Ajax on 7 and Atalanta at 7 as well. So this is such an open group still, isn't it? 2 more games, and all 3 of them teams could go through. Unfortunately, Midtjylland. It's not happened. But I think we knew that anyway.
They get the wooden spoon, don't they? So,
but obviously Liverpool, we've seen sort of a diminished team, haven't we, with the injuries and everything else going on. Last night wasn't a good result, was it?
Well, we saw them play so well against Leicester, and then to see them play like that last night, it was a bit like no shots on target as well, and it's a bit like, what happened in the space of 3 days?
Yeah.
What happened in 3 days? I mean, Atalanta are a good team as well. They deserved to win last night. But Liverpool were so poor as well. And you would think they may put out your strongest team possible, win that game, and you're through. But they didn't. But even put out the strongest team, they made a lot of changes as well. And it's a bit like, if you would have gone for it a bit more, you would have won and not had to worry about qualification now.
Yeah, that does seem a bit silly, doesn't it? Like, literally, what I was sort of saying before, like, most managers surely just want to get this done as quickly as possible, know that you're qualified, and then you don't have to worry about it for a good few months again, do you? So, yeah, it does seem a bit strange, and yeah, Liverpool didn't turn up at all yesterday. And I think that's what confuses me. Like you said, like we saw them with a weakened side, with injuries and everything else against Leicester City, and they absolutely tore them apart, really. Like, it was quite an easy game. And then obviously, like I said, you don't want to take anything away from Atalanta. They are a very good team, and they got quite far in the competition last year. But yeah, you've got to have a bit more about you when you're coming to the Champions League like that. And for me personally, I just don't think they put in the most amount of effort they could have.
No, especially they had a back four of Neco Williams, Reece Williams, Matip, and Tsimikas. Three of them are not starting 11.
Is it really?
No, Tsimikas is probably Matip and Tsimikas are the most experienced because Tsimikas came from Olympiacos, but still, both Williams Neco Williams has been, I think, quite poor this year, not ready to deputise for Trent, and he could do with a loan, but that's where they targeted. Like both of them were at fault for the goals yesterday. And that's where the experience came in.
Who have they got for the last two games? Liverpool.
They got Ajax next game and Midtjylland.
So to me, either one of those games is where you change the lineup. Because to me, I think Ajax is a worse team than Atalanta, and obviously Midtjylland, they're just, whipping boys of the group. So
you would imagine Liverpool would beat Ajax at Midtjylland.
Well, they have to now. They're going to have to play a stronger side for sure, just to make sure that nothing dodgy happens. Because imagine if Ajax got a result or something like that. Then we're talking, hello, all of a sudden.
So Ajax played Atalanta last game as well.
Yeah, exactly. So there's still the potential for an upset here. So for me, this is the complete opposite of what Klopp wanted to do. But, they've got themselves in a situation now. They've got to think about this.
Do you think that, or do you think that maybe he thought if they've got, obviously they beat Atalanta so convincingly, didn't they, in the first leg there as well? It was 5-0, wasn't it, if my memory serves me well?
But that lineup was totally different to this lineup.
Yeah. I'm wondering maybe if he's looked ahead, obviously, to the Premier League games and he's got to balance the squad and he knows he's got Midtjylland who are, nowhere near the level. Maybe he's sort of gambled, and tried not to use all his best players. Maybe he's thinking, well, if he gets a win against Midtjylland, which is more than likely, he's going to go through anyway, isn't he? So maybe he didn't feel the need to risk, or do you think that's...
I think he underestimated it, to be honest. I think he underestimated Atalanta, came back to bite him in the arse, then, now he's got to deal with it.
Because if you won that game, you know what I mean, that's 12 points. Then Atalanta, you're through. It's done. And in those last two games, you can do whatever you want. To me, it just makes no sense that he played a weakened side like that. Like, I guess you could have said, he's looking forward to the weekend. I'm not quite sure who they have this weekend. Brighton. Come on, it's not like it's a must-win game against Brighton, is it? No offence to them, but yeah, to me, like you said, Ben, I think he sort of underestimated the opposition, and I think if you do that in this competition at all, it's a bit foolish.
But then they'll probably beat Ajax and Tuesday and be like, hey, they're through now.
Yeah, they'll forget about it one day, right? Let's face it.
So it'd be a shame, wouldn't it, for one of them teams not to go through there, because Ajax and Atalanta obviously have recently, in the last couple of years, had really good Champions League runs, haven't they? And they're both exciting teams, so it'd be a shame to one of them not to go through, actually. It's sort of three of them teams I'd love to see progress, but obviously competition doesn't work like that. But
Europa League winners.
So always a Europa League, yeah.
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you? It'd be nice if Atalanta did that. That'd be great, wouldn't it? And obviously Ajax got to the final a couple of years ago, didn't they?
It'd be nice to see Atalanta beat Arsenal in the quarterfinals or
something. That's if we get to the quarterfinals. Let's move on then to Group E, shall we? Chelsea, 4 games and 10 points. Sevilla, 4 games, 10 points. Both them teams are already through. And then we've got Krasnodar and Rennes on 1 point each. We've explained the group there.
That's any further comments? The story, isn't it?
Good goal for Giroud, wasn't it? Obviously, he's got 6 months left in his contract. He's been talking about him moving to Inter Milan, but that happens as soon as you hit sort of like 32 years old anyway, no matter who you are. What do you guys think?
Well, first off, I'd like to say to thank Sevilla, because my Jules Koundé card on foot is now going to go up because he's now progressed. So thanks, Sevilla, for that.
Okay, so for people that actually have no idea what you're talking about there, that was a FIFA reference. Can you stick to the football, please, Ben? This is a serious podcast.
Well, I'm glad you're happy. But, the teams we thought would go through, went through really. Maybe a Rennes you may have expected a little bit more, but they've lost a couple of players, haven't they? And obviously lost their goalkeeper, in fact, the team top of the group.
That's a big difference, I feel.
It is, isn't it? It's good to see Sevilla, but they uploaded a tweet, didn't they? The club account. I don't know if you guys saw when you get through to the Champions League knockouts, and then on the right hand side, but you can't win the Europa League again, and it was like a sadder face. But yeah, I mean, they're not in that competition. I think I mentioned that on one of the first ones, looking at the group. I said, well, they might, they might actually go through. So God knows who's going to win that competition now.
Yeah, that's true, actually. It kind of opens it up, because as soon as you see the Europa League and Seville Day, it's like, well, it's a foregone conclusion, really, isn't it? So
certainly going to get far. Okay, I think that's pretty much it on that group, guys. Let's move on to Group F here. We have Borussia Dortmund leading that group, 4 games and 9 points, followed by Lazio closely on 8 points, and then Club Brugge on 4, and Zenit St. Petersburg on 1. Tighter group here, isn't it? A couple of games left, actually. 3 of them teams could still go through, but Dortmund leading the pack, and, Dortmund are an exciting team, aren't they, with Haaland? I mean, what can we say about him?
Christ almighty, he just can't stop scoring. It makes me sick, because I keep thinking, if Man United actually bought him, where would he be right now?
Well, you think, what's he going to be worth? I guess a lot of teams like to see players tested at a higher level, don't they? And now he's gone to Dortmund and done it, yeah, I mean, how much is he going to be worth? I mean, when they sell Sancho and Haaland, which unfortunately, is inevitable with a team like that, I mean, man, the profit on them 2 players. What did they pay for Haaland? Can you remember from the...
It was 20 million, I think.
20 million?
Yeah, 20 mil.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I think his buyout clause, release clause, is about 75, 80 million or something.
So that's still
quite
reasonable, isn't it?
We're talking about probably the hottest property in the world right now in terms of, like, young strikers who can't stop scoring. Like, hasn't he already broke Ronaldo's record in Champions League? Is it R9?
He's the first to ever get to 12 Champions League goals, wasn't it? Which is quite interesting, a fact like that, because what the fuck does 12 goals mean? But, I mean, he's the quickest to get there anyway, by quite a few games, I think. So, I mean, it is amazing. And it's something like his conversion rate. It's 12
shots
goals
and 70 goals, games. Isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, his finishing is absolutely ridiculous. And he has a range of finishing. And a couple of his finishes, I mean, they're not all just, turn around and smash. He has that in his locker, but he also has a silkiness about him, which is quite impressive, because he's a tall guy, isn't he? He's a big guy, but he's strangely fast for someone of that build, and so much technical ability. He really is like one of them regen players on FIFA. Sorry for the reference again, but the ones that come through that are 99, like 6'10", 99 pace, but he's a fantastic player.
It's a complete striker. That's what, a lot of people have that mould. They're fast ones for counter-attacking, or... you've got like your Giroud type characters who, the hold up play and good in the box. Whereas he's kind of all those players in one, and he's still so young, and he's frightening.
He's a kid. Yeah.
He's a robot. He's an absolute machine.
He's the next one. If you sort of look forward, isn't he? Obviously, you got I'm talking about taking the throne from, Messi and Ronaldo. He's probably the one, him and Mbappe, that you'd expect to be up there, wouldn't you, in terms of goal returns? Will they ever reach Messi and Ronaldo's numbers? I don't know, because 2 aliens, really, but could push them close, couldn't they?
If you look at the sort of people that are about at the moment, especially young players, like you said, he could be him and Mbappe, and I think actually him more so than Mbappe. If you look at his scoring record, I would say he's the one most likely to sort of beat those numbers one day. And again, that's frightening. And I think, especially in the summer, there's going to be a lot of people interested in him. We're talking Madrid. Obviously, United will try and foul, as they always do. But probably everyone, Liverpool, Chelsea, Barcelona, literally he has the pick of the lot. And he would be worth every single penny. He's not a flash in the pan no more. He's proven it now, a different side, with Borussia Dortmund and everything. And I think, as soon as, they got him, they got Sancho, they could be... maybe a little bit of a shout for the Champions League, perhaps. You never know.
No, you never know, do they? The only thing about Dortmund is they do lack that little bit of sort of consistency, because we've seen them before. I mean, this is pre-Haaland, but doing very well in the league, even with a lead, and sort of dropping off. And there's been questions over the coach, but they are one of them teams. If they have one of them nights, they can do it. So it'll be interesting. And Haaland won was it the Golden Boy Award?
Golden Boy, yeah.
Yeah, the Golden Boy Award. So,
I do have a funny story about their opponent, Club Brugge. Dennis, who was meant to play for him, he basically wasn't allowed to play because he couldn't sit on his favourite seat in the bus, and he got chucked out the squad because of that.
Yeah, I saw that. That's bizarre, isn't it?
That's like me on the podcast. If I walk in and you're in my chair, forget it.
Then again, we did actually have to change chairs today.
Yeah,
so
we did actually swap chairs. Yeah, that is actually true, because I wasn't feeling the feng shui.
The vibe.
Yeah. All right, quickly move on. Let's then move on to Group G. Obviously, we've got Barcelona who are through. Barcelona obviously had their problems and clearly always having ongoing problems with Messi. Not him causing them, obviously between him and the board. We've got Juventus in second and on 9 points, and then Dinamo Kiev and Ferencváros on both on 1 point there. So Barcelona safe, Juventus.
Well, they're through.
Yeah, they are through. They are through. Yeah. So, I mean, they're the two teams we expected. I think we said if either of them teams didn't go through, there could be a small riot. So, anything to say on this group?
Not particularly, really. No, obviously, yesterday Barcelona didn't have Messi, and they won that game.
Don't need him, mate.
Juventus, they struggled actually. They were drawing 1-1 with Ferencváros for most of the game. I think it was Maradona scored in like 91st, 92nd minute, wherever it was. So. Again, they wouldn't have struggled anyway. Even if they drew that game, they were going to finish them off in the next game, weren't they? So, like you said, foregone conclusion. These two you expect to be in the last 8 or 4. So, yeah, Groundhog Day. Here we go again.
It's impressive though, Barcelona, isn't it? Because you'd say almost they seem more in dire straits than Juventus, really, with everything going on at their club. But, clearly they beat Juventus. So, I don't know. We'll have to see going ahead, won't they? Because
league form's a bit different, though. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For Barcelona.
Yeah. I think both teams aren't. You think back to a few years ago when we saw, I think we actually may have been together and watched that, was the Barcelona-Juventus final when, and he looked at them teams then and both teams were incredible. Obviously, we had all the peak of the players, didn't we? So many good players and peak Pogba as well, all them years ago. So, yeah. Interesting. Okay, let's move on then to the last group, but no means the least, if you're James Brett. So, first in the group is Manchester United, 4 games and 9 points, followed by PSG on 6, RB Leipzig on 6 as well, and Istanbul Başakşehir on 3. So, you must be happy, Brett.
Do you know what? If you've given me that at the beginning of the season when I first saw that group, I would bit your hand off at this point because I didn't see us getting anywhere near this. And I know we had a bit of a scare the last game against Istanbul the first time round because that was such a terrible performance, especially defensively. So it was nice that, well, for starters, obviously we won the game 4-1 and it was a convincing performance. Bruno was out of this world. But it was just nice that we actually won another game at home. So I'm hoping we can actually get a bit of a home record going. I think we need that one more point from the last 2 games against obviously PSG or RB Leipzig, and then we're through. So
I was going to say about that though, because obviously where you're at in the table at the moment, you're top, so fair enough. But your last 2 games obviously are against probably the 2 other teams you thought you'd be fighting to go through. Do you know what I mean? So if you got dashed in the last 2 games, what I'm saying is it's still close, isn't it? I mean, there's only 3 points difference and 2 games to go, 6 points available. So it's going to be interesting. It's a really interesting group, this one. And
it's completely
Istanbul,
possible.
Yeah. I mean, they made a good account of themselves because I think everybody thought they'd be the absolute fodder, but obviously we seen them, put in that good performance against Manchester United the first time. So, I think they've done well even to get 3 points, to be honest, because they're, financially, the others are juggernauts, aren't they, compared to them?
But it's like
still up for grabs, though, isn't it?
Yeah, obviously. Don't get me wrong. I'm not getting carried away because I know full well we like to make a job of everything easy, don't we? Like, if we didn't lose the last game to Istanbul, we would have been through, done, no problems. But I do have that fear in the back of my head that it could go all wrong, and I'm just going to have that squeaky bum time that last game, and I don't want that situation. But it's just classic United, is what we do. But yeah, like PSG, obviously they won against Leipzig yesterday, so you'd like to think that they're probably the closest contenders, but it depends how we play against Leipzig. To be honest, if we get through first or second, I don't really care. That's more than I thought we was actually going to do. So it's a shame we can't translate this Champions League form into the Premiership, but that's a discussion for another day.
Yeah.
So,
that's a weekend one, that one.
That's it.
So just before we move on to the PSG Leipzig game, actually, obviously that was played as well. That what do you think of Van der Beek? Obviously came in, he had a good game, didn't he? I saw his stats after the game, all very, very strong, and I heard a few people saying, maybe it is time to introduce him and drop Pogba and change the midfield like that. Do you agree with that? Do you think he's shown? Because I can't think of a time he's played badly.
I think you're right, and I think a lot of people have complaining with Oli, saying why are you not playing, your new signing, why you keep playing Pogba, and he's been quite patient with the opportunities he's had. He's come off the bench a few times, and he looked impressive, even those little cameos. And then he's been put into this game, And I think it was the perfect environment for him anyway. The other people he had on alongside him. Fred obviously he's a workhorse, isn't he? So he does all the running, but sitting from deep in at number 6, he was picking out such fantastic balls going forwards, and not even just him. I think Tellez, I think Cavani as well had a fantastic appearance.
Led the line well, didn't he?
He did, and he wasn't necessarily that person that was going to be in the box all the time. His average position was actually like a number 10 sort of thing, but that's because his job role was really to get the ball, hold it up, and then pass it out to the wings to the likes of Rashford, Martial, Greenwood, and that. And he'd done that so effectively, So, yeah, for me, I think Van der Beek played really well. I think he was man of the match anyway, maybe apart from Bruno. But for me, yeah, he's got to start part,
I thought Tellez had a good game as well, and I think Shaw will struggle to get in the team with Tellez there as well.
I think both of those have pretty much put a marker down on the spot. I think Tellez is playing better than Shaw. I think Van der Beek deserves to start ahead of Pogba. Pogba, when he has played, he hasn't done enough for me to warrant that start. And, you sort of saw when Van der Beek was playing what you're missing, because this guy, he's so energetic with it as well. And I think that's what you sort of lack with Pogba. And I don't want to turn this into like a Pogba bashing session because, I do think he's still a world-class player, but I just don't think it's in this system, and I don't think it's at Manchester United.
No, I think you're right. And I remember on one of the podcasts we did before, I think we said, we're not bashing him. And some of the things that Souness was saying at some points, I know we criticise him because I think he's gone completely overboard.
Oh, he's a clown.
Yeah, and I think people do jump on him for no reason. But I guess all we're saying is, if someone's, playing better at the time, you have to play them, don't you? It's all on form, regardless of what you paid for them or the potential or whatever. I do see you as a better sort of balanced team with him in, because he's more of a technician, and Pogba, as you say, sometimes he just doesn't get quite right. And his form this season, obviously there's been more talk about him moving and him fueling that and all the same garbage that's been coming out.
But that doesn't help, that sort of stuff.
It doesn't,
and he brings it upon himself. But the problem is and we're basing this on what we're seeing. This is not just because it's him. This is facts. We're seeing how we're playing without him and how other people play in his position and are doing it better. So, I don't want people to sort of think that we are sort of just bashing him for that reason. It's not, because I'm just going by what I'm seeing. No, what I'm seeing is right there in front of me.
He doesn't fit there, but, we did see a real player at Juventus, and I just don't feel like we've ever really seen him do that at United. I can think of one sort of 3 or 4 or 5 month spell where everyone was like, this is the guy that we knew from Juventus, but we haven't seen him. But it could just be the wrong team. How many times do you see a player go to one team, it not work, go somewhere else and be absolutely incredible? He's got all the talent, but, maybe it just wasn't the right move. But we'll see if he moves on anyway. But if we go then quickly to the PSG Leipzig game, did you guys see the penalty decisions in this game?
I did indeed, yeah.
What's going on? I'm so
we ask
confused.
ourselves this every single week now, don't we, with these decisions?
Yeah, we should just have a little bit. We go into like a jingle, and then we can talk about all the weird decisions. But
VAR
fucked up the game. No, but yeah, strange again. But obviously, very important win, wasn't it?
Yeah,
PSG in the end, and
Neymar stepping up, taking the penalty as well. So he'll love that.
Yeah, he will.
I think they did deserve to win that game anyway, from what I saw, but. Yeah, like I said, that's an important step for them. It all just depends on if United can hold a nerve, and then, that depends if the other two have got a shot, really. It's all dependent on that, so I hate that sort of pressure. I don't like it.
All 3 teams there as well. Obviously, Leipzig, smaller in stature, obviously, only been around a few years, really, but all 3 teams are going to feel like they need to get to that knockout, aren't they? None of them teams are going to want to drop into the Europa, especially, I guess, especially PSG. Imagine not going through and Neymar playing in the Europa League. It's not, do you know what I mean? That's not where you play.
Thomas Tuchel will be on the sacking board.
Oh,
I think he might be, That's a fair point. I'm sure there will be pressure there, because I don't think necessarily winning the French league every year guarantees your job at PSG, because that's kind of like you should be doing that anyway, sort of thing. So I think a lot of it is down to how you perform in Europe. And as much as it would be harsh considering how well they'd done last year, if they got third and was in the Europa League, that would be a little bit embarrassing for a club like that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, certainly take a hit financially. I think they may have some in reserve, though. I think they'll be okay. Okay, guys, we're going to wrap up that there. Join us again for part 2. We're going to speak about Maradona and, of course, the new tier system. See you in a moment.
This is James from production. We'd love to hear what you think of the latest pod. Give us a shout at hello@favouritefootball.com. Why not visit our Patreon if you really like our podcasts at patreon.com/favouredfootball. And of course, we're on all the socials. Hit us up at FaveFootballPod. We'd love a 5-star review. It really does help us, guys. And don't forget to share the pod whenever you can.
Welcome back to part 2 of the pod. And of course, we're going to start with the sad passing of Diego Maradona, which was yesterday, Wednesday, depending on when you're listening. So absolutely tragic, isn't it? It's crazy to think he's not here. It just seems like he'd be eternal, and I guess he will be. But let's go through some of his honours here. We've got the Argentinian Premier Division, the Copa del Rey, Copa de la Liga, Serie A he won a couple of times, Coppa Italia, UEFA Cup, and I guess most notably and most famously, the World Cup in 1986, obviously with Argentina. So how did you guys feel when you heard the news?
It was, like I said, it's really sad. And, you know, I think we were discussing this earlier, Killick, that, you know, I can't think of actually a bigger footballer in all of history, really, that has, you know, passed away. So this is like the biggest blow, I think, to football that we've had, you know, thus far. And like you said, it's, you know, it's devastating news because obviously he wasn't just an amazing footballer. He was also such a, you know, iconic character off the field as well, you know. You know, people always have opinions whether that's good or bad or whatever else it is, but it made him a more interesting person. It made him a more real person in a lot of ways. So, yeah, like you said, it's a great loss to the game.
What about you, Ben?
I mean, he was before our time, like me and Brett being born in 1992's Killick, you're obviously the 70s. But obviously, when you look at highlights of him and the things he'd done and his technical skill and that, it was just, you would just be blown away by it, even though you couldn't really watch him live. But you just have to see his highlights and previous moments just to be amazed and gobsmacked about what the things he did with a football.
His dribbling was absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. And he wasn't necessarily skills in the sense that we see now, obviously, you know, quite a lot of sort of recent skills, aren't they? And we sort of put names to him and stuff. His main ability was just that close, agile dribbling and his balance. He was impossible. And I know obviously we're going to come to one of his most famous goals a bit later against England, actually. But
I saw a photo as well yesterday. There was him and there was like 6 or 7 Belgian players, I think, just around him. And it was like, Jesus Christ, it took 6 or 7 men to actually stop him as well.
That's what I mean. Like you said, he's dribbling. I think even now with people like Messi, I don't think even Messi can say he's a better dribbler than Maradona. I think Maradona is the best dribbler we've ever had. And, you know, he's low centre of gravity. He was only like 5'5" or whatever he was, like, and you just could not get the ball off him. He was like a little pit bull, wasn't he? Like, he was strong with it. And like you said, he was a wizard. And, you know, you have to respect, you know, that sort of level that has sort of gone through all the ages, that even now when you talk about the likes of Ronaldo, Messi, things like that, you can probably say he probably is a better dribbler. And that's such an achievement for all those years and all the players that have come through since. Yeah,
and of course, we have to look at, you know, when you watch him highlights as well, let's remember the balls they're using, and also let's, you know, look at the pitches. The fact he was running like that on some of the pitches he was playing on is absolutely incredible. I mean, imagine now if he was in his prime with, you know, everything we have now. I mean, it would be scary, wouldn't it? I think he truly was just more than blessed. I think he was just born to play football, really born to play football. And Gary Lineker, he's told his story a few times, but obviously it resurfaced after we heard obviously the sad news. And he said, one of the most impressive things he'd ever seen him done was he took a ball into the centre circle and he just picked it up and he's whacked it right in the air as high as he could. It came down and he didn't even control it. He whacked it in the air again as high as he could. And he got to 13. And he said he'd never seen anything like it. And he said, you know, we were all trying it because he was playing at Barcelona at the time, Lineker. You know, they all tried it, and the most they could do, any of them could do was 3. And the third one was them chasing across the pitch to get the ball again. So imagine the technical ability that takes even to do that twice. You know, he was an absolute alien, an incredible footballer. It's tragic.
I think like naturally gifted sort of players like that don't come around very often. He's like he's a generational player. Like, you know, the 80s was his generation, you know, and I think, yeah, like I said, it's the biggest loss we've had to football so far. Like, one of the most naturally gifted footballers we've had, you know, in the past. You know, you can sort of put them in the same sort of category as Pele and the rest of them. I think what's sort of sad is, I suppose, is that you kind of know deep down that he could have been probably even better if you had put in the same sort of ethic as other players, you know, it makes you wonder really how scary he could have been if he also had that to his game as well.
Yeah, the thing is with him, and obviously, like you say, I mean, I wasn't actually born in the 70s, thanks, Ben. It was 80s. No, it wasn't. It was 90s. But, I mean, you couldn't imagine actually quite how famous he was. And he wasn't a famous footballer. He was almost like an icon. And people looked at him as a god and referred to him as a god. And we've even seen, obviously, years since he's finished playing, the reaction yesterday, people outside the stadium, etc., and putting down flowers and lighting candles, etc. The pressure he was under, I think it was a lot. And I don't know how you deal with that. And I watched the Maradona documentary. It was actually, I think, about a month or two ago. It was during lockdown. And when I watched it, I was like, all right, I get it. Because he could not do anything. He couldn't do anything. He was truly worshipped. He couldn't go anywhere without 50 people running out, you know. His life was completely flipped. And I'm not saying he's the greatest guy off the pitch. I know obviously he made some mistakes and obviously whatever, but, you know, we're a football podcast and what he did on the pitch is just, you know, absolutely incredible.
Wasn't that podcast when he was at Napoli as well, wasn't it? Is that where it basically covered the years of?
The documentary.
Yeah.
It followed him, basically from his transfer from Barcelona, then to Napoli, and then it's obviously at Napoli where you really see...
That's his peak years for me. Like, that's when, like you said, in his first, you know, Napoli's first ever Serie A title because of him, you know? That's when you found that he was the person sort of carrying his team, even, you know, down to the 1986 World Cup with Argentina. He was the only Argentina player in the team of the tournament. So he literally just carried them the whole way through. And obviously, done the most memorable game against England, which is, it's a shame in a way, because obviously it was overshadowed by, you know, the infamous hand of God, which, you know, on social media at the moment, you're getting the rounds. There's quite a mixed response, really. There's a lot of people still sort of referring to that moment. And yeah, don't get me wrong, it's not great for the game when you see things like that, but people do things like that now. Their own differences is we have VAR and better, you know, they all would have got away with it if they could, you know. So, but you know, again, what we were saying earlier is kind of overshadowed the fact that in that game he scored one of the greatest goals of all time when he literally weaved through like 6 or 7 players, like absolutely ridiculous. And you know, you had that side of him, and then you also had the other side as well. You know, you kind of don't want the bad to sort of spoil his legacy. You know,
I think that's what annoyed me with the newspapers this morning, because all you had in every single newspaper was that handball and the hand of God, and that's tarnishing what an amazing career he had. Like, yes, I mean, from an England point of view, everyone is annoyed about that, what he did at England, but you can't tarnish or have anything against him for being an incredible footballer.
Yeah, like the English media have been English media, you know what they're like in general anyway, but it actually shocked me, to be honest, that, you know, Peter Shilton, even after all these years, he's a very bitter man, you know. He literally was you know, Diego Maradona had greatness, but no sportsmanship, you know, and obviously brought up the fact that he never apologised for cheating. And I don't know, it's a strange one, because there was that sort of edge to his game, and I suppose, you know, that sort of spilled from his personal life and things kind of off the pitch, but, you know, strictly speaking, as a football talent, he was incredible. You know, I don't want to sort of judge him for his antics off the pitch as much, because I think once you go down that line, you sort of lose sight of what Maradona was about and what he meant to people even. So, you know, it's a slippery slope once you just start focusing on things like that.
But shouldn't we always be basing that on, though, what they were like as a footballer, bar what their personal life was aside? Because that's what football is kind of about. Us always judging them as a footballer, not what they are as a person.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, funny. Like, I think we tend to do this more with older players when they're not as fresh in our memories. And I mean, funny, like Ryan Giggs, the things he did off the pitch, like, is he going to be remembered for those? No, he's going to be remembered for having so many appearances in the Premier League for Manchester United and all the things he won. But, you know, I just think because he's an older player, those sort of things stick in your mind more. And it's like, people just need to sort of step away from that and judge him as a footballer rather than a person, because they're two completely different things.
Yeah, I think in any, you know, if we're being honest, footballers do get that bad right because people think they've got money in it or whatever. But in any, you know, line of work in the entire world, there's always going to be, you know, good people and bad people. It doesn't mean they weren't good at their job. That's the reality of it, you know. It's just the way it is. But yeah, I mean, he was something else. He was something else completely. And obviously the attention he had until, I mean, even still, every time he went to Napoli or anywhere, you know, he was greeted. He always makes you smile, didn't he? Whenever you saw a photo of him or whatever he was doing, every team in the world, every player seemed to have a picture with him, and he always seemed more than happy to do that. So he's clearly a nice guy. Clearly was a nice guy.
Yeah, so. I think so. I think you're right, especially when you've been looking at all the photos and all the testimonials from all the players and the clubs. He looks like, you know, a genuine nice guy. Like you said, he's been everywhere. Like every football club, he seems to just turn up, and then everyone's, you know, you can see in their faces they're so happy to be with him. He seems like he's always having a joke with them all. He doesn't come across as a very, like, you know, he's not a malicious person from what I can make out, especially, you know, as he's got older now. Do you know what I mean? To be honest, he seems like good fun. I'd like to go a night out with him. I don't think I'll be able to keep up. Yeah, but
yeah,
you know, he seems like a top guy.
No, but every single team he played with, and this was even said in the documentary, so this isn't just sort of post-death comments where suddenly he was the best person in the world, but everybody said he was a great teammate. People say, you know, he was arrogant, etc. He wasn't. He was actually a really good bloke. He never thought of himself anything more than anybody else in the squad, and everywhere he played was the same. So it clearly tells you something about him, doesn't it? He wasn't going around, you know, thinking he was the best and everybody else was just there to make up the numbers. He didn't feel that, but obviously he took responsibility really for the whole team. And what I would say with the handball and stuff, with being judged like that, is that he comes from a country where football is different here. Obviously, England is a massive footballing nation. The passion is serious, but somewhere like there, and it's the same sort of with Uruguay as well, and we see it with sort of the same sort of Suarez qualities, is more than that. You know, football is almost like a religion. It's bigger than religion. It's your life. And especially the people over there who don't have much. Football is absolutely everything. So, you know, to him, punching the ball is not a big deal. And is it? Because I'd punch a ball over a keeper if it meant I could win a World Cup. Go through the World Cup. Obviously it wasn't the final, it was the quarter final, but you know what I mean? Yeah, he got away with it, and really you can't knock him, can you? You can't knock him for that.
The thing is, like I said, people do that now, especially like a defender or something. You know, they know a goal's about to go in. They'll stick their arm out and do things like that. So I think it's a bit hypocritical sometimes when people say, "Oh, I would never do that." I was like, well, you know, unless you're in that situation, I'm not saying it's right, by the way. I'm not condoning that it's right. But unless you're in that situation, and sometimes you do things and you don't expect to get away with it, but he did. And then he can't change that. That's the officials, you know. So once you've done that, you can't go, oh, yeah, well, I suppose you could, but you'd be a bit of a div, I suppose. Like, yeah, by the way, ref, I handballed that. Like, you just wouldn't, would you?
His reaction afterwards is fantastic because he looks around to the rest of the team almost, because everybody knows he's handballed it apart from the ref. And he sort of looks around like, come on, like, celebrate. Mate. And he's screaming. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe that was missed in these VAR times. It'd be a bit different. But I mean, we wouldn't have that story, would we? So I guess that's the ups and downs of it. But yeah, very sad, and he'll always be remembered. And he's one of them players as well that even when you look back, you see some players now who are looked at as legends, and you look back at clips and you think, oh, would they work in today's game? But Maradona absolutely would, wouldn't he? He's got all the ability, or the same kind of ability, because obviously them players who are great then would be great now, of course, but you can imagine you could just drop him into another team right now and it would just work. He has all of the same sort of skills.
Especially, I think now, especially because obviously there's a bit of that modern debate about the effectiveness of number 10s and attacking midfielders and things like that. And he was the epitome of that role. Like, he made that role his own. He was so good at it, that sort of link between midfield and the attack. And, you know, because he wasn't one of these players that scored, you know, a shit ton of goals sort of thing. That wasn't, but he was involved with everything and he made something happen. And it's very much reminiscent of what you see with the likes of Messi, Ronaldo now, is when they pick up the ball and start running at you, the whole crowd will get up because they know something's going to happen, you know, in some capacity. And, you know, there's so many memories that he has given people, like, you know, even opposition. Like, I think he was one of the first people to get a standing ovation from the Real Madrid fans when he was at Barcelona. And that's no small thing at all. No. For them to do that, he must have been playing incredible. And he has done over the years. He's been absolutely fantastic.
I think his name will obviously go through the generations, like, since he's been playing since like the 80s, well, 70s and 80s, like, that's a good 40 years from then till now, and his name is still being rung. So that name will continue through generations of people of what is a good footballer, or what is the definition of a perfect footballer, or generational, and it'll be Maradona for many more years to come.
Oh, he'll be a god forever. I mean, there's literally, you know, paintings of him all over, everywhere. And I was speaking to Brett actually on the way to the studio, and I was saying to him, I heard something where Argentina were playing Italy in Naples. Obviously, Maradona's Argentinian, so you think the crowd would be against him being on the opposition team, and they weren't. And that's the effect that he had. And he actually had people sort of Italians who were back in Argentina because they love Maradona that much, and he was one in a, I don't even know, probably as Brett said near the beginning, probably the most famous footballer and the one who's made the biggest impacts. And it's weird because when I heard he passed, it was like, oh no, he can't die, like he can't be dead. Do you know what I mean? It's just unbelievable to think it's ever going to be possible because he's just there, isn't he? He's just there. He always has been. He always will be, as I said. But
that's the thing. Like he has died, but what he's done is eternal, and that will always go on. And I think that's the most important thing. He will always be remembered for what he did on the pitch. So it's obviously tragic news, but that's always going to be eternal, and he'll always be remembered for what he did for football.
Yeah, for sure. All right then, guys, let's move on then to the other news, shall we? So obviously we're hearing that coming out of lockdown in England, of course, we're going to have this tiered system. Obviously, if you're abroad, you may not be familiar with it, but what the tier system does is it allows you to do certain things. So if you're in a higher tier zone, if you're higher risk, more things are closed and you're unable to do so many activities outside, for example. And if you're in a low tier, you've got a bit more freedom, and that's how it works over here in England for our international fans. So Brett, do you want to take us through what this sort of divide means for football stadiums around England?
Well, it's not good. I'm not going to lie.
Well, let's just start off then by saying that we raised our concerns last time, didn't we? Before we even knew about this, we were saying, if there's a tiered system, what will this mean for the other teams? And we found out it means what we thought and what everybody thought. So, yeah, give us a little rundown on this.
Yeah, well, obviously, like you said, we voiced our concerns last time, and we sort of said, there's a lot of things that they surely have to take into consideration, which I'm not sure they fully have, to be honest. But obviously, depending on what tier the area is obviously if you can have fans or not. The clubs that can actually have fans at the moment is Arsenal, Brighton, Chelsea, Crystal Palace, Everton, Fulham, Liverpool, Southampton, Spurs, and West Ham. So obviously, because of tier 2 of London, which most of the clubs are in, and other places, they can have, I think, 2,000 fans for the home games.
Yeah.
For the rest of the clubs, though, like Villa, Burnley, Leeds, Leicester, both of the Manchester clubs, Newcastle, Sheffield United, West Brom, and Wolves, they will be playing behind closed doors. So I think if this is correct, they can only have on the home games for those teams that are in tier 2 or 1, they can have the fans, but the other ones, they have to play behind closed doors. So I don't think they can have away fans. I think that's how it works. So I know that was one of our concerns in the first place, is what about if they can have fans going everywhere? Yeah. And I think that sort of answers the question of, can you sort of mix the tiers and all the rest of it? So I suppose what it does do is, if you do have the ability to have fans, you've got your home advantage back, and surely that's going to have an impact.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as far as I'm aware, there are actually no clubs that are in tier 1, which obviously that makes a difference straight away. But also, if you're in tier 3, obviously you kind of fans will stop. But I think it's a mess. And something else I was listening to yesterday, because we were saying, if they can get the fans back, at least there's some money, etc., etc. Well, actually, not really, because when you bring them fans in, that small amount of fans, you also then need more people. You need security, obviously, because you can still run on the pitch. Even if there's not as many of you, the issues are still the same. And, they're actually going to be losing money still. So you do start to think, well, should this be allowed then? Should they have some fans, some in the other? And Brett, you made the point in the last podcast, well, if you can't have it in any, you can't have it in one, you can't have it in any, surely. That's the way to do it. And you think, well, maybe even from a financial aspect, that's probably the best way as well, isn't it? Because, okay, you can have some fans back, and you're also losing money. I don't know. It's always a mess, isn't it?
It does seem that way. And like you said, 2,000 fans is not a lot. I suppose that will obviously help the home team, just having a little bit of support. Well, if they can hear them, I don't know. I don't know how that's going to sound.
Sitting in front. No, they're all going to have to be spaced out and everything, aren't they?
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. And then I don't know if this part is true, but I've obviously heard that they won't be allowed to shout and chant things. That can't be enforceable. What are they going to start doing? Throwing people out for shouting for their team? Like, how can you contain that excitement if your team scored an absolute worldie or something? Like, when Maguire hits it from 60 yards and top bins, like
Benteke, you're out, Ash.
I was going to say, Palace will be fine watching at home, wouldn't you?
But, do you know what I mean? Though it's just you can't. for me, like I said last time, I just think don't do it at all if it's going to be like this, because it's just going to be crap. I'm not going to lie.
Okay, but Ben, what do you think? What do you think on the situation?
Obviously, we all want fans to be back in the stadium, but then it's kind of a bit like, if you're letting some fans in other areas, then it's a bit unfair that you can't let other fans in other stadiums. It's a bit like people will be getting a financial gain at other clubs where other clubs will not be getting a financial gain. So it has this like, oh, this will be good to get them back, but then a negative comes along with it. And it should be like, if no fans can come in for that club, then why should other fans come in for that club? Obviously, it's the tiering section there, but surely you'd want all fans in at the same time. And it's a bit like fans will then be getting a special privilege to see their team where others can't.
Thing is, as well, is like, obviously we're speaking about the financial sort of thing, like it will help, but I don't think it does. And I'll take it anyway, that the 2,000 fans that are allowed to go, surely they're going to be prioritised by who's got a season ticket. So they've already paid for their tickets in the first place. So they're not making any extra money, really, if those people are getting priority. Do you know what I mean? So unless you've got the whole stadium, up for sale pretty much, you're not making no money.
No,
surely.
some were saying they thought they may take 10,000 fans to actually make it worthwhile, because you say with all the procedures, you can't have them people in without herd many security guards, herd many testing at the gate, clearly, not full test, of course, but temperature tests, and whoever's going to do that, and whoever has to set up even, the walkways outside to come in. There's more than you think. There's a lot of people required even to just put on a normal game when you start getting fans involved. So,
but is there the burgers still? Like, these are questions you need to know. Like, is the pie going to be on sale? Are the pie people there?
I don't think. Oh,
these are the real questions the government should be answering.
Will
there be pie?
I think there may be pie. If someone could let us know on our socials, will there be pies at our stadiums when we go? Or we won't go, of course.
Otherwise, I'm not going. I'm not bothering.
Yeah, it's the only reason we go. No, but yeah, I think it's flawed. But I mean, at the same time, I guess we wanted fans back, haven't we? And this is one step. And you think if we don't take this first step, and fans don't sort of allow it, and clubs, don't allow the fans to come back anyway, you would worry: are they going to go from 0 to 60,000? Probably not. Do we need this as sort of a step up? Do you think maybe that's a sort of testing the waters? Is that what
yeah, I suppose it's sort of dipping your toes in the water a bit, but then I don't see it going the other way. I don't see it like, okay, we've let 2,000 in, it's all good, now it can be like 5,000 or whatever else. I can only see it go one direction, just from how we've seen all the other legislation go, to be honest. And I can only see the tiers getting higher for most places. So London being in tier 2 at the moment, I can only imagine that going to tier 3 at some point, because that's just the trend of how it's going. And then what do you do from there? Like, what about if it's the day before and they decide to change it? What happens to all those fans that can go? There's so many logistical problems that I don't think they've really thought through. It's like I said, it's a mess. So.
Yeah, and they'd have to look at the season tickets, wouldn't they? And sort of, I guess, because let's be honest, most football fans are absolutely in love with their club, and for most people, is their life. If they have to go across, obviously, to a different tier, that's not allowed. But I assume that people would maybe risk it anyway, wouldn't they? So I guess they'd have to work out, and this is where it's sort of unfair. They'd have to work out who's close enough not to cross a tier to come to a game. And we saw the tier system last time was pre this lockdown, wasn't it? Because this is why now we're in full lockdown, because the tier system messed up, basically. And obviously we're going to be back there again. So, it doesn't work for me, but I mean, each to their own opinion, I guess.
It's hard, isn't it? Because it's kind of like you're basing all this football stuff coming back on something that we fundamentally probably think is flawed in the first place. So if that's flawed, the whole tier system, everything else, then everything that's applied to it, including the introduction to football and fans, is not going to be smooth, is it? The transition, let's face it.
Is it across all levels? Do we know? I don't know that. Is it all the way down? Yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's going to cause even more issues for kind of smaller teams, but teams with lesser income, isn't it? Because of course, if you're in the Championship, you're not earning as much money. If League One games can be played and you've got to pay however much to have your fans back, I guess we could see clubs can just say no, can't they?
I don't know. Also, have they got 2,000 fans like the Premiership? Because their stadiums aren't the same size. Is it sort of scale? Like, so if your stadium's smaller, maybe it's like a percentage. Maybe they can have 10 fans.
I don't know. I thought the maximum for any event wasn't it 4,000 if you're in tier 1.
I thought so. Yeah,
and it has to be half if it's in tier 2 or something like that.
So does that
I guess
not
you
matter?
could still have I guess 2,000, which actually for a small ground may.
Yeah, so if it works like that, then a smaller club might, it might be slightly better for them. But
yeah, not so much for Newport County, who actually they're not allowed any fans in the stadium at all because no sporting events are allowed in Wales. So take a moment to think of them. How does that affect Swansea? Actually, saying that.
Well, it must be a similar sort of situation, I
same
suppose.
logistics. Yeah.
Oh
God, this is just it's ridiculous.
You think there's so many logistics to
Cardiff
this?
is
It's a
one,
bit like, and it's a bit like it's all going to go bad if you can't let all the fans in at once. Just let them all in when we are ready to do so.
Yeah, like if you're not going to do it properly, that's actually going to have like financial gain for these clubs and keep them afloat. Then don't do it at all. It's kind of like the same sort of thing, like having the pubs open, but you can't sell alcohol. Well, cheers, we're going to go bust. That's what we're going to see with League 2 and League 1 now. So thanks for that. Cheers, FA and the government.
It's been a strange year.
You've ruined football and you've ruined Christmas.
And these are. How long are these in place for? Was it until March? I'm gonna get it wrong.
March.
Was it March?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So obviously we're going to have this issue for a few months, and I guess we'll have to see. In an ideal world, obviously everywhere would go down to tier 1, and then of course maybe we could introduce more people into the clubs, etc. But
another thing as well, I just thought of. What about if you're, a fan like me who supports Manchester United, who lives in London, and then I can't cross tiers? I'm buggered.
But you never went anyway, so it's
that's
all right.
my own fault, isn't it, really, for supporting a team that's
There
not
you
in
go.
London?
there you go.
God has smited me.
I suspect people will try their luck anyway, to be completely honest. But
I'll just put on a northern accent and see what happens.
yeah, we're not encouraging that you do that. Please,
Just don't get caught.
stay on your zone and wear a moustache. No. Okay, so I guess that's it for this here Systems, isn't it? You guys can join in with us, obviously, at the weekend when we do our usual show. We're going to go through all of the action that comes up. We've got some action. Ben, Crystal Palace playing Friday. Is that correct?
Yep, Smora,
Yeah.
draw written all over it. My
Yeah.
prediction.
So all the games going to be wrapped up by Sunday, aren't they? So if there's Friday. So, yeah. Obviously, tune in then and catch up with all the news. See you then.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.